Welcome back to my channel. I'm Bethany with Craft with Bethany, and today we're going to talk about sewing with rope. I posted just a little bit ago on my Instagram saying, hey, I want to do a live. I'm trying to make this a routine on Sunday afternoons. And I just got back from a sewing retreat. So I was like, do I do it? Do I not? But I love connecting with you all. So if you're here and you're watching, please say hi in the chat. I'd love to say hi to you. And I thought, okay, I'll give you guys two options. I did, and majority voted. It was close. It was close. So we'll do the other one another day. But you guys want to learn how to sew rope. I've been sewing with rope since 2021, maybe even before then in 2020. I mean, at least 4 years, maybe 5. And I love it. Haven't done it in a little bit, but I'm re-inspired to do it again. And I'm going to walk you through some of that and share some examples of things that I've made, some small projects, some big projects. Unfortunately, a lot of my projects I've gifted. These make really good gifts. And I think my aunt took quite a few of mine at one point. So I'm going to show you what I have. And then we're going to walk through some things that I've made. Now, this is not going to be like an in-depth tutorial of how to make something from start to finish. But what it will be is getting you started and getting comfortable sewing with rope. I will show you how to make a coaster and a couple other little things and some tips on adding, fabric to your bowls or baskets or whatever you want to make. There's a lot of resources out there. We can do some more in-depth tutorials later on. But what I'm going to show you today is just some best practices, things I've learned along the way so that you guys have success right off the bat. So you got a ton. Jess said that I got a ton done at that retreat. I did. I booked it like 2 days before the retreat happened. And I made 2 giant quilt tops. They're the biggest ones I've ever made. And then I also made a table runner. And not only did I make the table runner, I quilted it and did a flange binding, which is basically what I call like a peekaboo binding or a double binding, where you have 2 different fabrics that into your binding. So you have a little thin piece and then you have your binding. It just kind of elevates. It's a fun new thing. Well, it's not new, but it's a fun thing to do when it comes to binding. And I had never done it before. So even when I go on these retreats, I learn new things. I like to challenge myself. And it's a good reminder of, it's a good way for me to fill my cup so that I can continue to educate and do what I do. So anyways, we're going to sew with rope today. I'm going to give you some of my best tips. It has been a hot minute since I've done this, so let's hope we don't have any hiccups. But before we kick off, I thought I would show you a couple of my favorite projects that I still have that I've made with rope. Would you like to see those? Okay. Well, one of them is for my dogs. And it is a giant basket for all of their little toys, and I like to put the little fun wood beads and stuff on there. This one I did by wrapping paw print, black and white paw print fabric on it, and then where it wasn't wrapped, there's black thread, so it really stands out. And adding colored thread to a rope project really can make it really fun. So I love this. It's the perfect height for my littlest dog so she can get in and get the toys that she wants. It's got some good sturdy handles. This has been squished down a few times. Ooh. And you can see even I put the fabric on the bottom and built it out. So this isn't the biggest basket I've made by any means, but it's a good one. It's one of the first few that I made that I still have. And it's held up really well, and the pups love it. This is not even a third of their toys, not even a fourth of their toys. But Lamb Chops lives in here, and these are some of their favorites. So this is a great use of these to throw in the corner of your living room or wherever the pups hang out to keep their toys. Just an idea. Now, my most favorite project I've probably ever made in my lifetime out of all types of projects. Okay, so this one takes the cake for me for my most favorite project. And also one of my most challenging projects, but one that I will never get rid of. I don't even know how else to say that, but I'm just going to show it to you. And you've probably already seen it if you followed me, but it is my giant pumpkin with lid. How cute is this? Now, this one, the rope is completely 100% covered with fabric, and I used 3 different types of orange fabrics to give it some dimension. So there's a lot here. Let me switch my camera so you can see it from above. It still has Halloween candy in it. Don't judge me. But yeah, it is my most favorite project I've ever made. There are some little felt pieces in here for its face. Here's the other one. So yeah, I made the lid, and you can see I used 3 different orange fabrics, these little like polka dots. This one is more of like an ombre solid, and this one has really subtle like circles on it. So those are the fabrics I used. These curly cues are rope as well. There's rope in here, and they've stayed curly this whole time. This is not rope. This is the only thing on this entire project that's not rope are these right here, these little leaves I made, and you can't see very well, but there are decorative stitches on there to give it some more dimension. And then this was rope, and this is what starts the entire lid. And then I had to hand stitch the leaves and then the lid in, or the stem in place, so it wasn't flopping around. But yeah, this was completely made from scratch. I didn't use a pattern. I made it up myself. I had never made a bowl with a lid before, but this is back when I still worked for Singer. Actually, it was at the beginning of my journey with Singer. And I was asked to make something for the Better Homes and Garden magazine ad. It did get posted. I have the magazine, and it's at the very beginning. It's an ad for our machines, and my project was featured in the magazine right there. You see? So yeah, it has my name right there and everything. I absolutely love this project, and the machine I'm using today is actually in this ad. It's a Singer Heavy Duty 6800C, which is a computerized Singer heavy duty, but I do recommend a heavy duty or some sort of strong machine to sew through rope. The last thing I want to show you about my little pumpkin here is this felt. We'll just kind of stick to the front. You don't have to glue it on or anything, but it allows you to put it on before Halloween, and then after Halloween, you can continue to have this sitting out through Thanksgiving and the fall by just taking the felt off. Is that going the right way? Something like that. There's the other eye. I'm doing this backwards. There we go. Isn't he cute? And then when Halloween's over, you can just take that off, and I leave it in here. But yeah, this is probably my most favorite project I've ever made. Understandably why. Now, it was a labor of love. It took a lot of time, some trial and error. And once you start sewing with rope, and we go through this tutorial today, you'll kind of understand what I'm talking about. But to make a bowl or a basket that is flat and then goes straight up, not so hard. To make one that kind of goes out, not so hard. To make one that goes out and back in and make a good curve, really challenging. And then to do that in a reverted way and to get this to fit perfectly on top, that was so challenging. Now, if you would like to learn how to make this exact project, because I'm not making another one. I've been asked so many times, but I'm not making another one. But I did write a tutorial for it. It's over on my website, craftwithbethany.com, and you can go get the pattern with the full tutorial step by step on how to do all of this. And a lot of the tips I'm going to share today will help you with that, but there's even more tips for more of an advanced rope project like this. This is an advanced project. Do not start with this. We're going to start a lot simpler, okay? So I'm just gonna let him sit back here somewhere. Where should he sit? He's not gonna fit on the shelf. Okay. That's cool. Can use a basic heavy duty. I've never thought of sewing rope before. Jess, sewing rope is a lot of fun, and there's a lot of great resources, and I'm not the only one out there that enjoys sewing with rope. So definitely go check out some of the other videos that are out there. One resource I want to share with you all is this right here. This is the Zigzag Rope Sewing Projects, 16 home accessories to make with a simple stitch. This is by Catherine Lyle. I actually just got this book when I was at H&H, and I read through the whole thing on the airplane. Beautiful projects. I've made these many, many, many times. I like how she finishes off her projects a little differently than I do. But there's so many fun ways. I also love how she sewed the whole bowl and then dip dyed it, whereas I have dyed the rope pre-sewing it. So there's so many different ways of doing it. There's a lot of really fun projects, tips, tricks, tutorials. It definitely dives into a lot of the what I would say comparisons of different types of ropes that are out there. Just for reference, look, there's even some planters. I even linked in the notes of this live on YouTube and Facebook, I linked the rope that I order. What I order is off Amazon, but this company also sells their own rope. And I bought some of it while I was at H&H. That's what these are right here. So they have some fun colors. What I really liked was this variegated one. So I thought I might incorporate these into some other projects and make something with these two together. So this is called the Mountain Thread Co. And it's solid braided rope. But I also use braided rope. And I get mine natural rope from Amazon. So I did link it for you. I did notice it was on sale today. It's not always on sale, but feel free to go check it out. I will say that I typically use one entire thing of rope that I get from Amazon to make one of my biggest baskets. I'm pretty sure I used one, maybe a little more than one for that pumpkin one. So I can't remember. Like I said, it's been 4 or 5 years since I started sewing with rope, and I made that pumpkin in 2022. So that's been at least 3 years ago. So with that being said, there's a lot of fun things you can do. You can purchase rope in smaller quantities like this. You can purchase it in bigger quantities when you get it, like from Amazon. It's not going to come in a ball, but that's going to be my first tip. My first tip for you all is if you do get a big skein of rope, that you take it out of its bundle and you roll it into a ball, and you have some sort of bowl or basket on the floor that it can roll around in, like one of those dollar store plastic bowls that you can just sit on the floor and have that roll around, so it doesn't get tangled and knotted, because nothing's more frustrating than as you're going in the groove of sewing your project and this is becoming a pain. So be sure you take the few minutes to just roll this up into a ball. Doesn't look like a lot. There is a lot. I think, actually, let me look. I can tell you exactly how many yards of rope there are in this bundle that I get off Amazon. It is 100 feet. 100 feet of 3/16 inch diameter clothesline rope. It's all-purpose cotton clothesline rope. It's currently on sale in the US for a little over $8, normally $15, so it's about 44% off is what it says. Not bad. Now, this is a cotton rope, so it will dye, which I have a little bit left of the pink that I dyed. I just use RIT dye. You can do whatever you want with that. I've made one that was dyed with blue. Before I rolled it into a ball, I laid it out going back and forth, and I dyed one end really dark blue and let it sit for a minute, and then the middle I dyed just a quick dip, so it was more lighter, and then the top I left natural, so it was like an ombre. So when I sewed it up, the entire bowl basket was ombre, different shades of blue with the natural. So I didn't know exactly what it was going to look like. It was really fun. The pink one, I did dye the entire thing up and made several pink things. And I think they've all been gifted to someone, because I don't have any of them anymore, but I have this little bit of rope left. So we'll play with this today. Something else fun that you can make with rope, especially if you have a little bit left over, it's just fun keychains, and using the wooden beads is a fun way to kind of, finish a bowl, a basket, or a keychain or something like that. Now, when you go to finish the end of the whatever tail you want to put on it, if you want to brush that out, recommend getting one of those wiry dog brushes, and that will separate the braided rope and give you that little fun frayed look. So maybe if you don't have a pup, grab something that you can separate that with. And that's pretty much it. So let's dive into actually getting started and sewing something. Now, every project is a little different of how you want to get it started. But for the most part, what you're going to do is circular shapes. I find those the easiest to start with. So let's turn this into a coaster. And I'm going to actually start by using a white thread. I had black on here, but I think I'm going to start with white because I'm sewing on this pink and I want you to be able to see it. So let me change my thread real quick. Are there any questions that I can help answer before we dive into the sewing part? I wanted to get to that part as quickly as possible. Now, I will say this is a thick material. It's not horrible, but it is thick. So you're wanting a denim needle. Definitely want a denim or heavy duty needle in your machine, which I have. And what else? You don't need an extension table, but it is helpful if you're making something big because you want to keep it flat until you turn it upright, which I'm going to show you. So we'll see how far we can go on this pink. I don't know how much is here. You also have to have a machine that can do a zigzag stitch. That is the must-have, is a, excuse me, a machine that can do a zigzag stitch because that's how we're joining this rope together. Someone asked type of needle, denim or heavy duty. I think I have a 90 or 100, 110. A heavy duty needle is a must. Do you need to use cotton thread? Great question. I'm using cotton thread, but you do not. However, remember that one on the front here where they sewed the whole thing and then they dip dyed it? If you don't use cotton thread, your thread won't dye. It'll look different than the rope because the rope is cotton. So just keep that in mind, that if you want the thread to dye, if you dip dye your bowl or whatever when you're done, if you want your thread to also dye the same color as your rope, then you need to use cotton thread. If you use a poly blend or anything like that, it will not dye or not dye the same color, and it will be obvious. So I'm just calling that out. I recommend cotton, but if you don't have cotton and you may want to dye your rope first. Okay. Just food for thought that I like to share, but great questions. Let me know if you guys have any others. And we're just going to jump right in. I've got this is what was the beginning part of a ball. Now, if you keep going, it'll fill into this. This is what's left of this. So let's just jump right in. I want to see if I can do, let me see here. I've got several camera angles, so I want to see which one's probably going to be the best for you guys to see. Probably right here. So when it comes to doing anything that's going to be circular, we want to start by making a circle, and we want it to be really tight, okay? So we're going to just start winding this together as tight as possible. And we want to go for a little bit, at least until it's an inch and a half in diameter. Okay, so I've got it about like that. Looks like a little cinnamon roll, doesn't it? A pink cinnamon roll. And I'm going to take a really long straight pin and carefully stick that through as best I can without bending my pin. This is challenging. And without poking myself. Okay. And then I'm going to come around to this side and stick another one on this side. There we go. So you can kind of see it came out a little bit, but it's nice and flat. It's not going anywhere. And what I can do is a couple of things. Some people like to do like a crisscross applesauce and make a little X with a straight stitch, which is fine. I like to do a zigzag stitch. It looks a little messier, but honestly, it looks really messy on this one because I use black thread. It's totally up to you. At the end of the day, this is the bottom. And once you put stuff in there or whatever, nobody's really going to see it. Okay. Adds character. I like to zigzag it because I want it to be really strong and sturdy. but you don't have to zigzag it at all. Okay. Let me see if I can angle this both ways. Now, real quick, I need to set my machine to a zigzag stitch. That's right there. And your width and length is up to you. We're going to go up in length just a little bit because I don't want it to be super tight. We're going to leave this width at 5. That's the default on my machine. I am just using a regular all-purpose presser foot. I'm not using, I'm not using any sort of special walking foot or anything like that. And I'm going to start not right at the edge. Okay, we don't want to start right at this edge. We want to start a little in because we want our machine to be able to feed it back and forth just a little bit. We can go back to the edge. See if I can turn this a little closer. Bear with me for just 1 second. And my phone wants to fall. There we go. Is that better? I want you to be able to see the machine and what I'm doing from both angles. Let me find my foot control. Now I'm going to back stitch. Let me move this a little bit. Because it's touching the table, it wants to jiggle. Sorry about that, guys. There we go. I'm going to back stitch to that outside rope and then keep going. But I want to stop and take out this first pin because I'm approaching that area and I do not believe in sewing over pins. I think it's really bad for your machine. And here's my other one. It's really just to hold it in place as you get your machine set up. Then I get to the other side and I'm going to back stitch and I'm just going to go quick. All right, so now I'm going to leave my needle down. Okay, so I went back and forth this way. I'm going to leave my needle down, lift this up, turn my project so I can go across the other way. Okay, so I'm just going to go this way. There we go. Forward. Backwards. I like to do it a few times. This is the base of your entire project, so we want to make sure it is, you know, exactly going to be really, really strong. Now I'm done. I can take this off and just show it to you real quick. This is what it looks like. Oh, there we go. Nothing crazy, nothing fancy. You can trim these threads now or later. It doesn't really matter. So we're going to put this back under the machine and we're going to keep going with our pink rope. Now, here is one important thing to note. As you are sewing, you want to make sure that your rope is coming off the right side over here into this space because you want your project to build to the left. So as it builds to the left, you can turn it up and be able to make it into a bowl. So we needed to build out to the left. If you have it going this way, you're going to hit a stopping point where you can't go any further, okay? We want to sew. Let me get this closer for you guys. We want to sew that so that we're catching both sides of the rope as we continue to add it on. So now we're going to line up our foot right here and we're just going to start zigzagging and going all the way around, okay? So this is where the fun begins, I like to say. I'm going to trim these little threads just so they don't get caught and in the way. All right. So far I just have this one little ring started. So you started like one ring in. Let's see here. I've got, this is the center. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4 out this way. 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's about 4 times around before I pinned it and started stitching back and forth. Now I'm going to start stitching in a circle. Okay. So I'm going to line it up so that my zigzag is going to catch both sides of the rope. You always want to back stitch a few times. Now, when you first get started, I'm going to tell you that as you first start going around, this turn is a little too tight. And so you're going to have to leave your needle down in the right position. So not the zig, but the zag. We did this the other day, last week when we were doing applique. You want to stop your needle in the right position. So I call it zigzag, like left to right. So not the zig, but the zag position. Someone thought that was funny last time, so I thought I would share that. So as I go, I'm just kind of stopping, lifting my foot a little bit, and continuing to work my way around. Now, I know it's kind of hard to tell from here, but I am keeping this hand pretty close. It is feeding and pushing my rope up against my curve, okay? As this starts to grow and get bigger, we won't have to stop and pivot. It'll be easier, and we won't have to do that. The curves will be a little wider. You do need to make sure that your thread, your needle, is going through both pieces of rope, what you've already sewn on and what you're adding. Otherwise, it's not going to catch it, and you're going to get gaps and create weakness in your bowl project or your rope project. Now, what I would love to hear from you guys as I keep going around in circles is what interests you about sewing rope and what's something that you want to make with rope. I will say I have made some really big baskets over the years, and they make wonderful baby shower gifts because I love taking a gift that's not in a gift bag. I prefer it to be something cute and usable. And so I will make one of these rope bowls, and then I will fill it with diapers and a plushie and some books and other little maybe like onesies and stuff like that. And it makes a really cute gift. And everyone I've given one, like every new mom I've given one of these to, has either used it for diapers or toys or different things, where it changes over the years. My mom has one in her living room that has toys in it for my nephew. So when he comes over and she's watching him, he's got all of his toys right there. Easy to access, easy to put away. And it looks nice in her living room, even when he's not there. Okay, so one other thing I want to call out real quick is if you can see this moving down here, it's starting to move because I've run out of slack. So you do want to stop and make sure that you have some extra slack, even if your ball is on the floor or wherever. I've just got a little bit, so I've got it sitting here. Now, as you can see over here on the left side of the screen, we're just going to continue to go around in circles. You can see I chose the white so you would be able to see it better on this pink rope. And as you get going, you don't have to stop as often. And it just goes by a little faster. All I'm doing right here is using this left hand to turn it. This right hand doesn't move. So it's kind of hard to see from this angle, but my right hand is not moving. It is just holding this in place, kind of up against it, okay? I'm not pulling. I'm not putting any tension. We'll talk about tension in a minute, okay? It is just laying nice and flat. And you can see how quickly this can start to build once you get going, okay? It makes it easier and easier. My right hand is feeling for any twists, knots, and bumps along the way, and that's it. Now, something else to keep in mind. As I was sitting here sewing, I was just thinking about this. If you're going to turn this into a bowl or a basket, what you see on top right here is actually going to be the inside of your bowl. Okay, so your top thread is the inside. So if you wanted to do a different color thread on the inside and a different color thread on the outside, your different color, whatever you want on the outside needs to be in your bobbin. Whatever you want on the inside needs to be in your top thread that goes through your needle. Okay, so that's another fun thing to do, to add some variation. So there's a lot of ways that you can add color without dyeing the rope. You can do that through different types of thread colors or variegated thread. A variegated thread, where's my threads? Here we go. A variegated thread could be something like this. Let me see if I can get this over here in the camera shot. There we go. Where it's like different colors all on one spool. And so as you stitch, it will change and look different. So there's a lot of different variations of variegated threads, like same color family, or this one's like the full rainbow. So it's totally up to you, but this would be a fun way to add some color and make it really fun. First time here, and I love your sewing machine. Thank you so much. This is the Singer Heavy Duty 6800C. I've had this machine for 5 years. I absolutely love it. I did link it below in case anybody wants to check it out. This is the only machine I've ever used for sewing with rope, and it is any of the Singer Heavy Duties handle sewing rope projects really, really well. So can't go wrong. All right, let's keep going and see how much we got here. If you have any other questions, feel free to drop them in the chat, and I'd love to answer. I linked the rope and where I get it off Amazon in the description. I also linked the book that I showed you at the beginning, and I'll show it again in a minute. I linked that in the description as well. So those are the 3 things I linked: the book, the rope, and the sewing machine. In case you're wanting to jump down the rabbit hole of sewing rope, it is so much fun. Hope you guys can hear me over my sewing. All right, see how fast this is building? This is super fun. Now this would be like a good coaster size right here, but look how much rope I still have left. I have quite a bit left. So like I could keep going and make like a hot plate or something like that, like something to sit next to the stove, or I don't know. I mean, it could be whatever you want it to be. Let's just keep going. A little bit longer. Let's see what comes of it. Like that's a good size for me for like one of my big mugs. So I think I'm going to stop here. I just have a little bit left, and honestly, I could probably make another smaller one. So there's a few different ways to finish off your projects. Thank you, Karen, for letting me know that you can still hear me. So there's a couple of ways that you can finish off rope projects. It really is up to you. And in that book that I showed earlier, here, I'll show you real quick one more time. In this book, they give you a lot of tips on finishing off your project, also doing different types of handles and all those kind of things. But one of the things I like to do are these little loops right here. Let me see if I can show that up close. Right here. This is how I've always finished off mine. So I'm going to show you with that. I also just want to point out, like, they add pops of color by just changing the thread in different points in the project. Super fun. But we're going to do a little loop on the end. So the best way to do that is to just cut your rope. And again, it's up to you how big of a loop you want. I don't want it to be too big. So I'm just kind of, I just eyeball it, y'all. I don't do any fancy measuring or anything. So all I'm doing is pulling this in. Let me see if I can. I don't want to make y'all seasick, so I'm going to switch this camera real quick. Sometimes if I switch the camera and change the angle, yeah, there you can see a little bit better. Is that better? Okay. Fun of technology. So I've got my little tail here. I have stopped with my needle down, but I am going to lift the foot. Okay, so needle down, so I don't lose my spot, but I've lifted the foot. And this little tail end is just going to get wedged in there. Now, I like to point this out. Can you see the color on that? Let me see if I can. I don't want to take this off. You see the color? That is the inside of these ropes. They've got like a synthetic filling. So what I like to do is kind of pull that out a little bit. Do you see how I've pulled that synthetic filling out? Pull it a little bit. They're very fine, but it's what gives the it some structure. And I just give it a little trim. I just trim a little hair off, okay? And then I just kind of pull on my rope. What that does is it's taking some bulk out of that end, making it a little flatter, and it will wedge in there a little better, okay? We're going to stitch this down really good, so don't worry. So I'm going to put that there. I'm going to take one of my straight pins. Actually, you know what? Let's do this. Let's put the foot down. I think you guys need to see this a little bit better. So I like to do it right here on the machine and not take it off, but I think you guys need to see it a little bit better, okay? So what I'm going to do is just show you from here. Okay, so I just back stitched a little bit so I could take it off and not lose my spot. And we're going to trim these little tails. So at any point when you need to change a bobbin, because if you're making a big basket, you're going to need to change a bobbin. You're just going to do a little back stitch and keep going. You're going to have those little spots throughout. You can see on this one, I have a little spot right here. Darker threads obviously are going to be more obvious. So here we are. Here's my little tail. I've cleaned out that little synthetic bit, and we're just going to wedge that in there. And I like to use a straight pin, just like we did at the beginning. There we go. So I've just wedged that in. And then this is what I do. I'm going to start here. Okay, so let me show you. I'm going to start here. I'm going to back stitch. I'm going to come into this. I'm going to back stitch a couple times right here. I really want to capture and close in this little tail so it doesn't fray. But then I like to kind of push this side of the curve of my loop down so it follows that edge again. And I'm going to stitch all the way down. And then I'm going to back all the way up. Okay, I just want to secure this. This is going to be something that I'm going to use to like hang it or, you know, grab it or whatever, but I want my loop secured a little bit. You could have your loop loosey-goosey. That is fine. And you may want to kind of tuck, you know, stitch that down as well, like go into here a little bit. So we're going to stitch into here, and then we're going to stitch this down and have just a gradual little loop, okay? Again, it's personal preference. Play with it. Have fun with it. Do whatever you like with it. I'm just going to stay on this camera angle for now. Just remember, we're going to back stitch when we first get started, always, to secure our threads and our stitches. Okay. I do not want to stitch over my pin, so I'm going to stop and take that out. Okay. Okay, so I've secured the bottom of my loop. We're going back fast, okay? And now, see how I've secured this side of my loop? Now I'm going to secure this down just a little bit. I don't need a huge loop. I just want a little one. So I'm going to go this way. This is going to reinforce what I've done. And we're going to back stitch over it again. I like to do it a couple of times. There we go. That's it. I have stitched, and I do a lot. Okay, I like to make sure that's not going anywhere. It's not coming off. I think the stitching is part of the fun effect. Of course, if you were doing white thread on natural rope, you wouldn't see it as obvious as the pink rope white thread. But I think it adds character. It adds fun. And again, it's nice and secure. And this is done. That is all that's to it. I mean, that just took us a couple of minutes. So what size needle am I using? I'm using a denim needle. It's a heavy duty needle. She said she normally burns her ends, but this seems to be easier and clean. I also don't like to burn it because there's a synthetic filling in there that's like plasticky. So we don't want to, I don't like the smell of that. So anyways, this project's done. We made a whole little coaster. That's a good size. I don't have a cup. I have a tiny can, but I have coffee mugs that are bigger. So that's why I made it a little bit bigger. But again, what I recommend doing is as you're going and making your projects that you measure and you kind of keep track of that. Now, the next thing I'm going to show you real quick is we can do something flat. Making flat things are easy. You can turn these into, like I said, hot pads. You could turn them into placemats and things like that, fun little table centerpieces and things. You can start them not in circles. You can start them going like long ways and make it into like an oval shape. And you can decide your starting point and then go oval shape instead of a circle. So it's totally up to you that however you start it is the shape you're going to get. So you could totally do that. That's how I made these like fun little coasters. I started with a smaller, like, I don't know, 3-inch little piece. And I just kind of went back and forth a few times. And then I left a long tail and knotted and did some fun beads. And then I just poked this through between some stitches. Okay, so I could turn it into a keychain. First time watching you, so I will have to watch the replay. Yes, Cindy, hi. Thank you for finding me and watching. I'm trying to do fun sew-alongs every Sunday afternoon, so be sure to subscribe to my channel and you'll find out about the next one. I also recommend going to my website, craftwithbethany.com, and subscribing to my newsletter because I usually send out emails saying this is when I'm going live. I didn't this time today because I just came back from a sewing retreat this morning. I wasn't 100% sure if I was going to fill up to it, but I love hanging out with you guys. I also posted about it on my Instagram, in my stories, and on my Facebook stories, so you can see it there. So be sure to follow me on social media because that's real-time updates, okay? All right, so here is a keychain that you can make. Now let's talk about, all right, you started this, maybe we didn't finish it with a loop and you wanted to turn it into a bowl. How do I build the sides, okay? That's where I have this one that I started, okay? It's already kind of curved up, and I think what I'm gonna do, if you guys don't mind hanging out for just a minute, I want to show you how to build this curve. The best way for me to do that is to just seam rip this real quick. So we're going to do that real quick. Let's hope this works. I will say it's pretty easy to seam rip. Just stick it in and drag it. If you can get it started. I'm probably going to have a bunch of black threads everywhere, and that's okay. This is one that I started in another tutorial I did a while ago, and I never finished it. Now, if you ever mess up, if you ever not getting your curve just right, your tension right, which we're going to talk about in a minute, you can easily take it out. Like, this is a very forgiving project, which is why I like making these for beginners. I think it's a great way to learn how to handle material in your machine, but that's not just flat. I'm just going to take out a few rows of this. It's going to look messy because I'm not going to sit here and pick all of these threads off, but I want it to get it flat to a flat point so I can show you how to build the sides, because this is the part that I think tricks most people up. And it's all about tension, and not tension on your machine, but tension in your right hand. You remember before, my right hand was just holding the rope there. I wasn't pulling on it. I wasn't pushing it, nothing. But when you start building the sides, your right hand has a bigger role to play, and that's creating a certain level of tension to build the shape of your sides. So that pumpkin I showed you earlier, and I'll show you in a minute, again, for those who are just tuning in, that pumpkin required some delicate tension management to be able to get that curved shape. And that was because I changed the tension in my hand, my right hand. So, all right. There is a mess of threads, but I got most of it down pretty flat. So we're going to start here, I think. What a mess. I'm going to have to vacuum in here when I'm done. I just didn't know if I should start here or not, but we're going to start. I don't want to start another one from the center circle because we just did that. But I am going to show you how to do the sides and start building a basket, because that's the most fun thing to make, I think, with rope. Okay, I do want to clean this up a little bit. There we go. What a mess. It looks worse because it's black thread. So if you do mess up, just know that you're committing to a bit of a mess, but nothing a little vacuuming can't fix. Okay. It looks like a bunch of little spiders all over my table, which is hilarious because I'm terrified of spiders. But they're not spiders. It's just little black threads everywhere. All right. So this one's laying pretty flat. I could probably go around one more time, but I'm not going to bother. I am going to change my thread to black so you can see what I'm doing. Let's see here. And for those just tuning in, I am giving you my best tips on sewing with rope on a domestic machine. You need a sewing machine that can handle thicker materials like rope. The rope that I'm using is linked in the description along with the machine that I'm using, which is a Singer Heavy Duty, but there are other machines out there that can do it. You just need to make sure you have a machine that can do a zigzag stitch. And that's pretty much it, okay? All these other little threads I can pick out later. I'm not worried about those, although they're driving me nuts. All right, let's change my bobbin too. Thought I had a black bobbin in here somewhere. There it is. Okay, so I'm going to show you a couple things with this. Two things we're going to talk about next. How to build your sides once you get your base, the size that you want, and how to add fabric to your rope bowl or basket or whatever you're making. Those are the last two things I'm going to share with you guys today. If you have any other questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. And look at me, I'm just covered in black fuzzies. They are everywhere. Okay, so we're going to jump back on the machine. I'm going to do a quick back stitch of where I was. Okay, so when you're ready to start building up the sides, like I know this is as big as I want this base to be, okay? Measure it out, whatever it is, like that's the base, and now I want to go up. I need to decide, do I want my bowl or basket that I'm making to go up gradually and get wider? Do I want it to go up straight? Do I want it to go up and in, which most people don't, but oh, on this one that I showed you earlier, his little face is falling off. This one, nice and big and flat, and then it went out and then came back in, just gradually. It's a little lumpy because there's a bunch of Halloween candy still in here, but this was one where I had to make sure that I was getting the right shape, and I had to rip it apart a couple of times to get the right curve, okay? So taking it off periodically to make sure you've got the right shape that you want is really important. So this one, I would say, is definitely an advanced level project, and you can get this pattern over on my website, craftofbethany.com, if you want to venture down and try to make one of these. It's going to take you a while, and this whole thing's covered in fabric, but you could just dye the whole thing if you wanted and save yourself a lot of time. But I went the extra mile. Okay, so as you can see, let me switch back to this camera, and I'm going to add in my other camera again, just so you can see from both angles. Turn this a little bit. Okay, so as you can see, I've got my rope off to the right. I've got my hand nice and flat. Now, when it's time to start building the sides, and you have to decide when that is, you're going to take this, put your hand up underneath it, and put it up next to your machine. That's going to feel weird. It's going to be awkward, but that's what you're going to do. And you're going to use this hand to rotate it, okay? This hand's going to get a bit of a workout while this hand is putting tension. When you go from flat to building your sides, the tension's pretty taut, okay? I'm pulling pretty snug, not so hard that it's not feeding through, but I'm putting just enough. You see, like, You see that? Just enough, okay? Just a little bit, but I'm not like preventing it from feeding through. I'm not like manhandling it, okay? I just like to be we all have we all have different definitions of tension, so I just want to clarify. So this is up, this is being pulled, and we're gonna continue to feed. So what you can't see right now is I've got 2 fingers. So my thumb and my pointer kind of like pinching them together. It's a little hard to see, I know, but there's my thumb and my pointer kind of pinch, and those are staying in place, creating just enough tension as this feeds through my hand. You can see my left hand is just gradually turning it like a wheel, and just gonna let that continue. You need 2 hands on this at all times, so if you ever have to stop, and because your hand can't turn anymore, stop and then reposition, okay? Can you see how I'm starting to get this curve right here? Now, you can tell the difference between what I had already done and where I started because my stitch length is shorter than this. So you can go longer in stitch length, but having the difference lets you see where we started and how many rows we've added to start getting this curve. You're going to have to do this kind of tight tension for at least a few times around to start building up and going from flat upwards. It's going to be a gradual curve because we're still working with rope and round edges, but it will build and start to grow. Of rope is over here, so let me unwind some more. It's not on the floor, but I do recommend keeping it somewhere below your feet or to your right. Tell you, the bigger your bowl, the more bobbins you're going to need. So just be prepared. I always recommend winding extras before you even get started. You'd be amazed at how quickly you go through them. You do not have to sew as fast as I am. I've made these quite a few times. So I'm really comfortable with it. So you do not need to go fast. Take your time. Find your groove, figure out what handling and where your hands are and what's working for you. I'm going a little fast because I want to be able to show you the results as quickly as possible since we are live. Okay, so now you can see I've added about an inch. It's about 3 rows around, and this is going to start to grow out this way. And you're going to continue to be able to maneuver this kind of up and around. Now, the base of your bowl or basket or whatever you're making is going to, fold up to here, and then your sides are going to grow. As it grows, this is going to go this way, but you're going to also have more coming this way. And you're going to be kind of holding it like this and maneuvering it around because the weight of this is going to be too much. So just know that you're going to have to change hand positionings a few times. But what doesn't really change for me is where my right hand is controlling the rope as it's being fed in. I'm getting a pretty good sharp turn here of the rope to build the side. I want to keep going a little bit more. But the best thing to do if you're ever kind of going around and going, oh, have I done enough? Don't just fold it down. Like backstitch a few stitches, take it off, let it lay flat and go, okay, I think I like where this is going, or I want to do a few more times around the world before, you know, I get to that next stopping point and check it again. So it's totally up to you. Growing pretty quickly. I'm going to stop it just a minute. Okay. There we go. There's my bowl. As you put stuff in it, it'll sit more flat, but you can see how it's growing up the sides. It's looking really nice, except for all the little loose threads that I'm going to have to go through and pick out. But this is what it's starting to look like. And that was from me putting that same amount of tension. So what I could do now is go, okay, maybe I want to let up on the tension a little bit, and then it will start to grow out this way. Or maybe I do want it to go up higher and just continue to be straight. Then I'm going to keep that same amount of tension on. If I want it to curve in more, I need to put a little more tension on. I wouldn't recommend doing that for too long. You want to be able to get into your bowl. But you can, in a sense, control the curve of the side of your bowl or basket based on tension. Continuing to make something like this, I'd probably go around maybe 1 or 2 more times and call it a day, because this is like the perfect little catch-all tray for all my little sewing notions to be able to take from my studio room here to my sewing room down the hall. So I could have all my little gadgets in here. Here's my little pumpkin face, and put, oh, there's a bobbin. Oh. And here's a couple spools of thread. Like, I can put a lot in this little basket. I would say the base of this basket is about 8 inches, 7 inches. It's kind of hard to tell once it starts to curve, but about 8 inches. So this is a good sized little catch-all basket, and then super little fun tray and super fun. So let's talk about adding fabric to your rope bowl. So I'm going to set that aside. So I will finish that another day. Let's just practice on this pink. And I'm going to leave the black thread on because it's fine. And let's see here. I'm going to get this started real quick. Any other questions? Have I done a square one? I have not, Cindy. I feel like it wouldn't be super like obvious square. And what you would probably have to do is really build up that square foundation first. Now, don't know the best route to do that, as this is like well, let's do an oval one. Well, we can do square, circle. I have not done a square. I think a square would be really challenging in the sense of it probably at the end of the day wouldn't really have much of a square shape, especially as you start to build up and out. It would kind of just look like a lumpy circle. And personally, I just kind of feel like that just is probably what you would end up getting. But I don't let me discourage you from trying. And if you do and it works, send me a picture. I'd love to see. So I'm just going to stitch this down really quick. Once you start getting comfortable with these projects, you don't have to pin at the beginning, but you can if you want. And I'm just leaving the same black thread in here so you can see it really well on this ink. Okay. There we go. All right, so we can start building our circle real quick. Second, I'm going to show you how to add fabric. Now, when it comes to fabric, I do cut 1-inch strips and I cut them on the bias. And the reason I cut them on the bias is it allows it to stretch a little bit. Oh, and I'm using a woven fabric, so quilting cotton works really great for these. If you want to use something else, you probably can, but I've always used quilting cotton because it's the most variety of colors and prints. Now, a print, you will lose a lot of the design of a print because we're wrapping it really tight around rope that's getting sewn together. So you won't see much of the print. Even with the paw print fabric that I use, you have to kind of look closely to see that it's paw prints. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Now you can start adding fabric at any point that you want. And I've done some where I've added fabric intermittently in different, throughout the whole thing, like kind of a little bit here, a little bit there. You saw my pumpkin. I wrapped the entire thing in fabric, except for the very beginning circle. I didn't because I just didn't want to torture myself. So I'm going to cut my selvage off. These are 1-inch strips of quilting cotton, and they've got a little stretch to them because I cut them on the bias. Not a whole lot, but it's just enough to allow it to wrap easily. So there's a couple of ways that you can do this, and I've seen people do it a lot of different ways, but you just want to kind of start wrapping it around. Let me see if I can change my camera angle. Camera 2. Okay, and then let me find my little remote control here. And wrong way. I want you guys to be able to see. I'm sorry, I'm doing this backwards. So is that good? Okay, so all I did was I just started to wrap this around, and I'm not doing anything to hold it. I just wrap it tight enough that it kind of stays in place. But if you need, you can use a clip. So let me grab a clip just to show you. You can use a pin if you want, but I tend to stab myself with pins, so I like clips. All right, so my strips are 1-inch wide, cut on the bias, and about the width of the fabric. So since I'm using quilting cotton, around 42 to 44 inches in length. And I am just wrapping it around, kind of like a hair wrap. Remember those back in the day when you would like go on vacation and get hair wraps? It's kind of like that, but with fabric, okay? And you're just going to keep pulling it taut and keep going. Now, what you can't see, and I'm going to switch the camera angle real quick, is me kind of having to flip and maneuver this. And I want you to see this because this is what takes so long, okay? You'll end up scooting away from it. And you'll think, oh, this one piece is going to cover a lot of rope, and then it doesn't. There is going to be some threads and fraying. Those will get kind of lost in between the rope as you sew it on, so that's fine. But you can see how this can take a minute to do, and I did that entire pumpkin. It took forever. But I've done ones where I've just done a few, spots here and there. You can cut it off at any point. You can just do tiny little swatches of fabric and do different ones and make it real scrappy and colorful. I mean, like I said, it's up to you and your imagination, right? All right, so I'm going to stop here and I'm going to throw another clip in. But what I recommend doing is if you want to add fabric, cut it beforehand, have a little stash of it sitting next to you. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So we're going to go back to here and just keep sewing. Now, as I get closer, I am going to take my little clip out, but this is wrapped on there tight because I've been wrapping this whole thing. So it's not going to come undone at this point. And I'm just going to feed it in like I normally would. It doesn't add a whole lot of bulk, just a little bit. There we go. And this might be the ugliest coaster there ever was. Black thread, pink rope, mauve polka dot fabric. But you get the gist. We're working with the scraps that we have on hand for this tutorial. All right, so here's my other end. I could stop and continue to wrap this, or I could just snip it and just let it wrap around and end. Feed on through. Now you can see this little tail sticking off right here. You can see that little flap. So you just want to make sure that that kind of gets wrapped around as you go through, and it'll get tucked in. There you go. Here's my starting thread. Trim some thread tails. So quite possibly the ugliest coaster there ever coastered. I know, it's so bad. Look at this. Not cute. But I just grabbed the fabric I already had cut. Like I said, I just got back from a sewing retreat. So I wanted to go live with you guys and hang out. So you can see the zigzag. You can see that fabric added in. Super easy to do. Adds a little pop of color. Maybe choose a better color than that. But I showed at the beginning and I'll show it again. When you do it right, it can be fun. And you don't always know what that's going to look like. Like I did a bunch here. I did a little strip here, some down here. There's some on the bottom. It's totally up to you how you want to do that. Have fun with it. There's no right or wrong way in how much fabric or how little fabric. These little paw prints do get a little hard to see, but if you're looking up close like I am, you can see that they're there. This is my little dog's toy basket. Anyways, I just thought this was super fun, super cute, and hopefully inspire you all to try sewing with rope. There's so many things you can make with it. You can make some fun coasters, bowls. If you want to get this book, has I think 16 different projects in it. All of this I've tried before, so I highly recommend getting this book. I have it linked in the description, so go check it out. I also linked my machine I'm using. You don't need a Singer Heavy Duty, but I do recommend trying it out with your machine with a denim needle before you just go to town. Make sure that it can handle it before you just... Some machines can handle it. Some machines cannot. One other thing I want to mention, I have this linked, I have the book linked, and I have the rope, the natural rope linked in the description. So if you want to go give this a try, you can. The other thing I like to mention is if your machine has a really big head right here, when you go up with your bowls, it can make it a little challenging to get a really tight straight up curve there. So just keep that in mind if you're looking to get a new machine. That's why I like everything I've made with rope has been on this exact machine, which is why I linked it, because I can highly recommend it. But if your head right here is smaller, you'll have an easier time with it. So just give it a go, see how it goes. Some of those really small, I hate to say cheap machines, cannot handle sewing through stuff like this. Some can and will surprise us. So not all are made equal, and when it comes to sewing machines. So just know that give it a little test run before. One thing I do like to call out, though, is I use braided rope. I find it to be the easiest and the strongest, but they talk about the 3 different kinds of ropes. If you find one that's twisted, that's usually used for macrame, it is not going to be as sturdy and strong as something like this, okay? There's also stuff like Mary Ellen's Best Press, or some sort of starch that you could spray and press this. If it starts to not be flat, you stored it kind of wonky and it's starting to curve and be weird, you can always press it. There's also stuff called Stiff and Quick. I know that's funny, Stiff and Quick, but that is how I got these tight little coils. And I wrapped this rope with the green fabric and stitched it together with a zigzag stitch. And then in just one pass of the rope, and then I wrapped it around a pencil, a number 2 pencil, and soaked it in that Stiff and Quick and let it dry. And that's how I got these coils. And that's how after 3 years, they're still this tight of a coil. And super fun. So there's different ways to manipulate and get fun shapes. So don't be afraid to try fun things. This entire pumpkin was made from one big experiment, and I just got real lucky that it turned out real cute. There is a full pattern, written pattern on this. There's not a video tutorial because I'm not making another one. But there is a full written pattern of how to make this exact pumpkin on my website, craftwithbethany.com. So if you want to make something more advanced and want to go down that route, I encourage you to do so, but practice with something simple first and make some baskets. Have fun with it. There's so many fun ways to do different things. I even show you in that tutorial how to make the lid if you want to make baskets with lids. This book shows you fun ways to do handles, but there's so many other videos out there about how to do handles for different types of baskets. So have fun with it. This one, I kind of made up the handles and had fun with it and just measured so that they were opposite and not too close together. So again, have fun with it. I hope this helps you guys figure out how to sew with rope, have some good tips. If you have any other questions, please feel free to leave them in the chat or in the comments after this video posts. And let me know what you want to learn next Sunday. I'm trying to do these every Sunday. I will probably take my lives and turn them into like shorter edited tutorials to post on my YouTube as well. So you can find them 2 different ways. But I appreciate you hanging out with me this afternoon. I'm going to go cook dinner for my family and hope you have a wonderful, wonderful week. And I'll see you next weekend. Bye.